You have already done something that takes real strength. You said no, not once, but many times, and you stayed firm when it felt uncomfortable. Guilt was used, pressure came in different forms, and emotions were pushed toward you. Still, you did not give her what she wanted, and that refusal quietly changed the balance between you from the very moment you stopped responding the same way. Before this, she tried many approaches to pull you back in. She explained, blamed, softened, and shifted her tone to regain control. Each time, you held your ground. Then something changed. She stopped arguing, stopped explaining, and stopped chasing. What replaced it was silence, sudden and cold, creating distance that feels unnatural and impossible to ignore. This is not an accident or emotional maturity. Right now, tension may sit quietly inside you, even if nothing is happening on the surface. Your mind stays alert, trying to understand what this cold distance means. This video walks you through what is really happening, step by step, so you can recognize the traps ahead, move through them calmly, and come out grounded, steady, and stronger on the other side. What the cold silence really is. The cold silence you are experiencing is not a natural ending. It is not peace, and it is not emotional closure. It is a deliberate shift. After being rejected many times, a narcissistic woman does not simply accept the situation. Rejection weakens her sense of control, and when direct attempts no longer work, silence becomes the last option she can still use. This silence creates pressure without effort. There is no arguing, no explaining, and no emotion shown on the surface. By pulling away emotionally, she changes the focus of the situation. Instead of attention being on her actions, it turns to how you feel when nothing happens. That inner discomfort is where she expects the power to move back in her direction. This is not emotional strength or maturity. It is emotional avoidance mixed with strategy. She avoids facing rejection directly, while shifting the emotional weight onto you. Instead of processing discomfort herself, the discomfort is transferred. You are left with unanswered thoughts, while she stays distant, calm, and unreadable. The reason this silence feels so unsettling is because it happens suddenly. There is no gradual cooling down. One moment there is intensity. The next, there is nothing. That sharp change disrupts your emotional stability and creates a feeling that something is unfinished, even if you were clear in your decision. This silence is not neutral. Attention is being withdrawn on purpose, and it is meant to be noticed. If she truly did not care, the timing would not align so closely with your refusal. The timing reveals the intention behind the silence more clearly than words ever could. It also helps protect her self-image. By going silent, she avoids feeling rejected and instead positions herself as the one who walked away. This distance is not a healthy boundary. It is a wall, and that is why it feels cold rather than calming. Most importantly, this silence is not a reflection of your value. It reflects a shift in power. When words stopped working, absence became the tool. Once you recognize that clearly, the silence begins to lose its grip on you. Early signs. You are experiencing this move. This shift often feels sudden and unsettling because there is no warning phase. Emotional energy does not slowly fade. Instead, it drops off. One day, there is engagement, tone, and presence. Shortly after, communication feels reduced or completely cut. The pace changes in a way that does not match normal emotional distancing. That speed is the first sign that something intentional is happening rather than a natural cooling off. Another sign is how selective the silence becomes. She may still be active online, still visible, still posting or interacting elsewhere. while remaining unreachable to you. The silence is not general withdrawal from the world. It is targeted. That contrast can quietly disturb your sense of reality because it feels personal, even though nothing is being said directly. You may also notice that warmth disappears without conflict. There is no clear argument, no final statement, no boundary being communicated. The connection simply stops. This creates confusion because most people expect emotional distance to come with explanation, or at least consistency. When silence replaces engagement without context, the mind struggles to process it calmly. Another early sign is the lack of emotional tone altogether. Messages, if they exist at all, feel flat or transactional. There is no curiosity, no emotional presence, and no follow-up. This is different from someone needing space. Space still carries respect. This does not. It feels emotionally vacant, as if a switch was turned off rather than gradually lowered. Pay attention to how your body reacts. This kind of silence often creates tension rather than relief. You may feel alert, distracted, or restless, even though nothing outward is happening. That reaction is important. Healthy distance usually brings calm. When silence creates unease, it often means the connection was cut in a way that was meant to be felt. The clearest sign is the contrast with what came before. Intensity does not normally end in emptiness overnight. When emotional presence turns into complete absence without explanation, it points to intention. Recognizing these early signs helps you stay grounded. It allows you to see the pattern clearly instead of internalizing the silence as something you caused or failed to prevent. The psychological pressure it puts on you. This move works because it creates pressure without confrontation. Silence forces your mind to stay active. When there is no explanation, no closure, and no emotional signal, your brain keeps searching for meaning. This is not overthinking. It is a natural response to emotional interruption. The connection ends abruptly, but your nervous system has not caught up yet. As time passes, the pressure quietly shifts inward. Instead of focusing on her behavior, you begin focusing on yourself. You may review your tone, your timing, or your last response. This happens because the situation feels unresolved. The silence leaves a gap, and the mind instinctively tries to fill it with logic, memory, and self-evaluation. This internal pressure grows stronger when you are someone who values clarity. If you are used to direct communication, silence feels unnatural. You are not looking for control. You are looking for understanding. That difference matters. The silence takes advantage of that trait by keeping you emotionally engaged without giving you anything concrete to respond to. Another layer of pressure comes from uncertainty. You do not know whether the silence is permanent or temporary. You do not know if it is intentional or emotional. That uncertainty keeps your attention locked in place. Even when you are busy, part of your mind stays alert, waiting for something to happen or change. Over time, this pressure can affect your mood and focus. You may feel restless, distracted, or slightly on edge without a clear reason. Nothing dramatic is happening, yet your body feels unsettled. That reaction is important. Healthy distance usually brings relief. When silence creates tension instead, it signals that the situation is emotionally loaded. The silence also quietly shifts responsibility onto you. Without saying it directly, it encourages you to resolve the discomfort. The pressure suggests that movement should come from your side. This is how silence pulls you toward action without asking. Recognizing this prevents you from stepping into a role that was never yours. The most important thing to understand is this: the pressure you feel is not proof that you made a mistake. It is a response to an intentional emotional vacuum. Once you see that clearly, the pressure begins to loosen. Awareness interrupts the effect, and you regain control over where your energy goes. The reaction she is waiting for. The silence is not meant to last forever. It is meant to pull something out of you. Not a conversation, not clarity, a reaction. Any movement that shows the silence affected you. That reaction tells her she still has influence. It does not matter if the reaction is calm, emotional, confused, or polite. What matters is that you break stillness first. She is not waiting for a long message. She is not waiting for an apology. Often she is waiting for something small, a check-in, a comment, a sign that her absence created discomfort. That single signal confirms that the connection still has weight. From her side, that is enough to restore a sense of relevance without having to re-engage openly. This is why the silence feels strategic rather than emotional. It is designed to make you move while she stays still. The moment you reach out, the balance shifts. She does not need to respond immediately or warmly. The goal was already achieved. You reacted. The silence did its job by pulling you back into the dynamic. What makes this confusing is how reasonable your urge to respond can feel. You may want to clear the air or simply understand where things stand. That desire comes from emotional honesty. But the silence is not about honesty. It is about leverage. Responding gives leverage back, even if your intention is neutral or respectful. Another detail to notice is timing. Often the silence lasts just long enough to create discomfort, but not long enough for true detachment. It sits in that middle space where uncertainty grows. That timing increases the chance that you will act before fully grounding yourself. It is not random. It is paced to maximize internal pressure. If a reaction comes from you, the silence may suddenly soften. She may reply casually, slowly, or with emotional distance. This can make you feel exposed or off balance. That shift reinforces the control dynamic and quietly teaches you that movement comes from your side, not hers. Understanding this changes how you see the silence. It is not a message asking to reconnect. It is a setup, waiting for a response. Once you see that clearly, the urge to act becomes easier to manage. You stop feeling pulled to fix something that was never meant to be resolved through communication. Why this tactic often succeeds. This tactic works because it uses how the human mind reacts to sudden absence. When someone who was emotionally present disappears without explanation, your brain does not simply move on. It stays alert. It keeps scanning for meaning. That reaction is automatic. Silence creates uncertainty, and uncertainty keeps your attention locked in, even when you want to focus elsewhere. Another reason this works is because silence removes all clear signals. There is nothing to respond to and nothing to resolve. That lack of structure makes the situation feel open-ended. When there is no clear ending, your mind treats the connection as unfinished. Unfinished situations hold emotional weight longer than clear endings, even when you know you made the right choice. This tactic also succeeds because it quietly shifts effort onto you. When nothing happens, it feels like something needs to be done. That pressure builds internally. You may feel responsible for restoring balance, even though you did not cause the imbalance. Silence creates a false sense that action is required, and that action is expected to come from you. People who are emotionally aware are more affected by this. If you value communication and clarity, silence feels wrong. You are wired to address issues directly. That trait is healthy in normal relationships. Here, it is used against you. The silence counts on your tendency to reflect and repair rather than withdraw. Another factor is timing. This silence usually appears after repeated rejection, when emotional tension is already high. Your system is already tired from holding boundaries. When silence arrives, it hits a sensitive point. You may feel relief and anxiety at the same time. That mixed reaction makes it harder to stay grounded and steady. The silence also avoids accountability. There is no behavior to confront and no words to challenge. That makes it harder to process logically. Without something concrete, emotions linger longer. The situation stays vague, and vagueness allows doubt to grow quietly over time. What makes this tactic especially effective is that it looks calm on the outside. From a distance, it appears mature or detached. That appearance can make you question your own reaction. You may wonder if you are overthinking something that seems simple. That self-doubt strengthens the effect of the silence. Understanding why this tactic works helps reduce its impact. The pull you feel is not about connection or loss. It is about how silence interacts with attention, uncertainty, and emotional responsibility. Once you see that clearly, the silence no longer feels mysterious. It becomes predictable, and predictability removes its power. How to neutralize this move without escalation. Neutralizing this silence does not require strength, confidence, or a perfect mindset. It requires steadiness. The silence only works when it creates movement inside you. When your thoughts slow down and your behavior stays the same, the effect weakens. This means no reaching out, no checking for signs, and no waiting for the right moment. Waiting is still engagement. Daily structure becomes very important here. Regular sleep, work, exercise, and normal routines anchor your nervous system. When your day has rhythm, the silence loses urgency. It stops feeling like something that needs to be solved. It becomes background noise instead of a central focus. Stability on your side quietly dissolves the tension created by her absence. Managing digital exposure is not optional in this phase. Seeing her activity, even briefly, keeps emotional signals active. Muting, archiving, or limiting access is not avoidance or weakness. It is emotional hygiene. You are not cutting her off to punish. You are removing inputs that interfere with your ability to stay grounded and clear. Your mind may still try to assign meaning to the silence. Thoughts may drift toward explanations, motives, or future outcomes. Let those thoughts pass without engagement. You do not need to correct them or follow them. The silence feeds on interpretation. When meaning is not added, it slowly collapses on its own. There may be moments when she resurfaces in a neutral or casual way. This often happens once the silence stops producing results. That return is not a sign of change. It is a test. Staying consistent matters more than what you say or how polite you are. Consistency removes confusion and protects your emotional position. This phase truly ends when your mood no longer shifts because of her presence or absence, when the silence no longer pulls attention, time, or energy. It loses its function. You do not need closure from her to reach that point. Calm repetition of healthy behavior brings the situation to a natural close, without drama and without escalation. When you stop reacting, everything changes. If you have made it this far, one thing is already clear. You were not imagining things. The silence felt heavy because it was meant to be felt. What you experienced was not indifference. It was a final attempt to regain control after losing it. Seeing that clearly matters more than any explanation she could ever give. What gives you real power now is not understanding her better. It is understanding yourself in this moment. The moment you stop reacting, the entire dynamic shifts. Silence only works when it creates movement inside you. When it no longer does that, it has no purpose. That is when the cycle ends for real. You do not need to prove strength. You do not need to explain your decision again. You do not need her acknowledgement to move forward. Staying steady, grounded, and consistent is enough. The calm you build now becomes your protection later. And that calm comes from clarity, not from closure. Walking away internally is quieter than people expect. It does not come with a dramatic moment. It comes when your attention returns to your own life and stays there. That is when the silence loses meaning. That is when you take your space back, fully and without conflict. And as always, because YouTube's algorithm tends to favor videos with strong engagement, if you feel this video has brought you value, a simple like and a quick subscribe would mean so much. It not only helps this message reach more people who need it, but also ensures you will never miss the next video that could make a difference in your journey. Thanks all.